So we are back with Science in the Break, and we are back with a great chat with Felipe Carpes. He is the president of the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics and is also the future president of the International Society of Biomechanics. He gave us a very inspiring interview, and I am sure this is very relevant for researchers, especially early career researchers.
The goal of this initiative is to promote early career researchers. So I would like to stimulate cooperation between lab and researcher all over the world. Let me know if you want to be the next guest of Science in the Break. Now check it out the video.
Thank you very much for being today here, Felipe. So I would like to introduce today Felipe Carpes is an associate professor in biomechanics and kinesiology at the Federal University of Pampa in Brazil. He was the president of the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics and is the future president of the International Society of Biomechanics. He holds a PhD in human movement and focuses on neuromechanics, lower extremity biomechanics, and motor performance, as well as prevention.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So can you, well, I already gave a short introduction, but can you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I will tell the same history that I tell to my students every start of semester in Brazil, because I entered the physical education school in Brazil. I came from a very low income family, and going to the university was the opportunity to change my life. So I got this chance. I moved to another city and I started physical education school. But, you know, in the first year, I was kind of, I don't know, maybe this is not for me. I was not enjoying that much the course. But then I have a biomechanics class. And in this biomechanics class, I start to identify topics that I liked, like sports, science in general, but also the mathematics, the physics. And then I entered the role of biomechanics, because in Brazil, it's very common to have undergraduate students in the lab. So they start very early in doing undergrad research. There are some scholarship, that was my case, and I was a student. And at some moment, I realized that, well, I want to stay in this environment for my whole life. And then I did my master, did my PhD program. I was very lucky to be able to do all the steps in sequence. And, you know, because sometimes we stop for a while and then you go to the workforce and then you come back. And sometimes you just, other opportunities come, and maybe my life could be different, but I really like the way it is right now. So, and in the beginning, I was very involved in sports biomechanics research. But after a while, I moved a little bit to motor control. That was kind of neuromechanics, a mix between the mechanical part of the movement, but also the neural control. That was the case for my PhD program and PhD thesis. And I'm teaching biomechanics in my university since 2009. So I'm about to complete 15 years here. And my research has changed a little bit over the years, that I think is completely common. And from sports science, I mixed a bit with injury prevention and rehabilitation. But in general, my interest is to understand the acute adaptations of the lower extremity to sports, exercise, and rehabilitation. Major topics that we are doing research now are related to knee biomechanics, ankle biomechanics, fatigue, muscle soreness, strength training, and of course, for those that know me for a while, cycling, because I really like cycling. But Brazil is not a country with a lot of, how can I say that? It's not know about cycling, of course. You know Brazil because of the soccer, maybe. But I really enjoy this sport, and I have been doing research on cycling biomechanics almost during my entire career. When I was a student, it was easier because I just have one project that I have to run, and then I decide to go for cycling biomechanics. But now, as a professor and advisor of students, I try to include cycling as part of my research portfolio as well. So that's a short remember of how I get here and keep doing research on biomechanics.
Good. It is, yeah, I follow you on Twitter, and I'm aware you are a big fan of of cycling. I saw your post on Giro d'Italia, and soon there will be Tour de France. So, and yeah, that's very interesting, and is a really interesting field of research. Yeah.
When we talk about like a topic of interest that you have for research, I used to say to my students that if I could, I would just do research on two topics, that it's cycling and leg asymmetries, that are the topics that I really enjoy. So if you want to get my attention to something, to do a research collaboration, it will be about cycling and leg asymmetries. And I also say to my student that I thank a lot the bicycles, because the bicycles helped me a lot over my career. My scholarships as students were to study cycling biomechanics. My master was not in human movement science. My master was in engineering, but it was related to cycling. And the PG was related to cycling. And I still have projects related to cycling. So this is why I really like this sport. And I have so many good memories of doing research involving cycling, and the athletes, the friends, and of course the practice of the sport. I really like to get on my bike and ride.
So I will try to say the word bicycle or Tour de France from time to time to attract
yes.
if I visit. We are doing this series of talks, especially for inspiring students. And you mentioned many times about your student, how you describe your work. And well, we know that you will be the future president for ISB, and you are, right, the current president for the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics. So my question is about how did you get, well, passion or intrigue in being actively involved in this society? Because do you feel you can make an impact for the new generation?
I'm a bit scared about this part of International Society of Biomechanics presidency, but I can say that I will do my best. But how it started is because I think we as a professor, as a researcher, or someone that can work to develop some policy to help people, it's all about creating opportunities. And when I was the president of the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics for 2 terms, 4 years, right? We don't have in the Brazilian Society this president-elect, president, and past president thing, but just the president. I was in this position for 4 years, and it started because I want to contribute to some change in the society, to some improvements. And if you want to contribute to do some improvement, I don't mean that people before were doing wrong things. That's not the case, but we just want to help to contribute. So that it was the way I entered the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics. And at that time, one of my mentors was the president, Professor Marco Vaz. And I was working very close with Marco in the development of the society, some updates on the operational codes. And also there was the ISB Congress in Brazil in 2013. The ISB Congress was a game changer for the country here, because there was a lot of Brazilians that they were not aware about the International Society of Biomechanics. And then they start to participate more in the Congress. That was my case. I mean, my first ISB Congress was in Brazil, 2013. So sometimes I am in these meetings and committees, and I see people that has been participating in the ISB Congress for, I don't know, maybe 30 years. That's not my case, because it's a completely different reality. We had a very national biomechanics in the past, and now the Brazilian biomechanics is more international, not just because I am participating in the committee of the ISB, but we had another Brazilian before, that was Marco, in the committee, in the council, executive council. And now we have another Brazilian, that's Professor Eliane Fontana, participating as well. So this is my main motivation, to try to participate in this environment when you have very diverse people from different places, that you can exchange information, but you also can tell about your reality. Because I remember some colleagues that when they came to Brazil in 2013 to the ISB Congress, they did not realize how strong biomechanics in Brazil was. So if you learn about the different reality, maybe you change your opinion, and maybe it can be good for everyone. That was my case. And then I start to try to participate in this environment, to tell a bit about what we do in South America and Latin America, and also learn from more developed places, things that we can replicate in the country and in the continent as well. That is the case for South America.
Well, that's very inspiring. And I guess because you were mentioning being and having the opportunity to be in the Congress the first time gave you, like, open your eyes to a different world as well, right? So thinking in terms of the association, how do you think the association can support early career researchers? What do you think is important aside from, you know, seeing all this new world that is out there?
Yeah, well, that's a tough question, but we have some easy answers and some more difficult answers, right? The easy answer is, well, if you promote networking, you help. I mean, if you create an environment that people are safe, secure to express themselves, to show what they are doing. What I want to say is that sometimes my students, when they go to a I would say that not anymore, because now they are a little bit more used to the contest. But in the beginning, let's say, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they were afraid about showing what they are doing, because sometimes they think that what they are doing is not the same level of something that, I don't know, they are doing in Canada or US or in Italy and Australia. But that's not the case, because we have good science being developed in all places with different realities. So if the society creates an environment where people from different places can go and show what they are doing without being afraid about how the community will react to what they are doing, it creates a good environment for early career researchers. But of course, organizing a great Congress, that is the experience that we have in the ISB Congress every 2 years, is not enough. So today we have other topics that the society needs to play a major role. For example, we need to fight for diversity. We need to help the low-income regions to grow up. And this is not about giving money, because I remember that even in the society a couple of years ago, we discussed about helping groups from developing countries to grow up, right? So sometimes people think that what we need to do is to give money. And of course, a budget, it's important. But sometimes you need to qualify the people. So how do you prepare a grant to submit to a call for funding? Sometimes people have no clue about that. They don't know how to put an idea. It's not about the writing, it's about being evaluated. So what a committee will look at your proposal to define if it's a good one or no, right? So you can promote workshops, tutorials that many societies, many different societies do that these days to help the membership. Another thing that's very important, and ISB works very hard on this, is the travel grants. I really like this idea of the travel grants being an opportunity to one student from one country travel to another country and meet different people, learn new techniques, but create a network. Create a network that can help in the future when you are going to apply for a job, or you are, I don't know, maybe you are willing to move to another country. It's very good when you move to some place that you know someone. So these connections, the society, the different scientific societies, we have to work to improve this, right? So today, when one of my students say, I want to apply for this travel grant here, and I would like to go to Australia, right? And they say, good, where? Because we know so many people from there. Oh, I want to go to Italy. So where? Because I know so many people there. And most of people that I know, if I drop a message saying, look, one of my students want to visit you for a couple of weeks. Yeah, come. So, but it's okay now. But how it started? Because of the International Society of Biomechanics Congress and the network that the Congress promotes. Otherwise, I will be someone that would send a message and say, who's that? Never seen that guy before. So I don't know if I'll have time and energy to put on this collaboration.
No, it's very interesting, the part of networking, how amazing is just knowing someone and how that changed the reality for other people that are, like they don't really know what is out there, like the students. And then is how it creates new opportunities and new opportunities to move forward without actually thinking about just the money factor.
Yes,
Yeah,
and if I can do another comment here about this networking, and back to the previous answer about changing the perception that you have about places, right? I like to tell histories that works pretty good when I tell in Portuguese. I don't know in English how it works, but let's try. I remember the first time that people from Colombia invited me to go to Colombia. And I was very excited to go to Colombia. I mean, wow, that's amazing. So they they invited me to listen to me talking about biomechanics. Awesome. And I was telling to my father, said, hey, look, I'm going to Colombia. And he said, Colombia, but Colombia is too dangerous. And I said, why? No, because this and that. I said, come on, this is history. This is past. It's not anymore like that. And but that's dangerous. And I don't care. I'm going there. And in fact, I was pretty sure, I was right, because the country is amazing, very secure, and you don't have to be worried about going there. It's like Brazil. Sometimes people say, no, that could be, I want to travel to Brazil, but it's too dangerous. But depends where you are. I mean, you can find very dangerous place in Australia as well. You can find very dangerous places in Italy as well. And I'll give you these examples of Australia and Italy just because of the Alex and Francesco here. So when you go to the Congress, so you realize that, wow, there is this group doing very nice research on biomechanics, or I don't know, modeling or whatever. And they are from a country that I didn't know that they have biomechanics there. So it's about creating opportunities.
Your answer triggered me a possible suggestion, even if I guess it's not too easy. But you said that ISB in 2013 in Brazil was a kind of like positive explosion to revamp biomechanics. I hope it will happen in other countries, like maybe countries that are promising, but countries that are not that well represented yet in biomechanics, but they have a good potential, and that can be the same. That is like my hope for the future. I don't know, maybe somewhere in Africa or Asia, that will be like very interesting. And well, Felipe, my next question is, well, it was also triggered by what you said for Colombia, but it's more about well, South America, because you are from Brazil, but I guess you have connection from other biomechanics around the different countries in South America. How is the situation? Do you feel the level of biomechanics is raising a bit everywhere in South America? Do you think it should be more, I don't know, supported by other societies?
Yes. Well, the level is very good. Very, very good. People need to be more confident to show what they are doing. That's the short answer. I would just say again that I have a lot of connections in South America, but this is just because of biomechanics. I mean, before I start to show up and participate in the community, I know no one. So after I start to participate in the congresses and making these networks, and then I realized so many people doing research in Latin America. The first contact that I had in Latin America was in 2013 in the ISB Congress in Brazil. People from Chile came to the Congress, and they were showing results of very interesting research on clinical biomechanics. And then we were talking about what they are doing in Chile and this and that. And they start to participate in the Brazilian Congress for Biomechanics that we have every 2 years in Brazil as well. And then I realized that there was people doing research on biomechanics in Colombia, in Peru, in Uruguay, and also in Argentina. We have some small groups, and here comes the big challenge for our reality of developing countries. It's because it's not about having the money, you know. We have to, how can I say that? You need to have the opportunity to get money regularly. For example, I have a good idea for a research here in Brazil, and then I can apply for a grant. And then I got this grant, okay? So then I can buy an equipment to the lab. Good. But it will take me, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 years to get another grant, because the offer of the funding is not regular in Latin America. Sometimes you have an opportunity to get some funding, and then you do her research, but you don't have a continuation. You know what I mean? So you have some break, and then now we don't have money. Now we have money. Now we don't have money. Now we have money because the government changed, because of the economy, because of the currency, and this and that. So all countries in Latin America suffers a lot with that. But when I was a master's student, I was in the lab working in my research, and the phone rings in the time that you use the phone to talk, because nowadays, and I remember the history because I was talking to someone from a private university that called us to ask help because they want to know which equipment they should buy to set up a biomechanics lab. Just like that. And I was a master's student at that time. My perception of science was about having a big lab with many equipments. And then I said, maybe you need some device for kinematics, for kinetics, maybe electromyography, depending on what you want to do, this and that. And, okay, man, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the help, this and that. Okay, so, and then I was talking to one of the professors from the lab a couple of days later. And I said, people from the university of other city, a private university called us here in the lab, asking help to know what they need to set up a biomechanics lab. And he said me, oh, that's great. And what was your answer to the question? And I said, well, I told them they need at least cameras and force plates and electromyography. And then he said, but you told them they need a brain, because they need a brain. They need someone. So they have someone to set up the lab. And I said, I don't know. Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. So we have the brains here in developing countries. You have the brains, but we need more, how can I say that? We need to be secure that if you propose a research, we will be able to keep doing research in the future. We have good examples that people that achieve this. I can say that I have achieved this over the years here with regular funding in the lab, always students with a scholarship. They don't need to worry about equipment. All equipment are working. But I mean, our case is like 1% of the whole thing. I mean, most of people, they will have a lot of problems. They'll be struggling to keep doing research because they don't have this continuous support, even from the universities. So this is why things sometimes are so slow in developing countries, because sometimes you have a project in a developed country and everything works very well in 1 year. Maybe here, the same project can take 3 years because you have to stop your experiment because the device had a problem, and then take you 6 months to fix it. because you don't have the money. So we have good ideas here. We have good people working here, but we need more value from our countries. I know that this is a global discussion about putting value on science and putting value on people doing science. But this reality is completely different depending on the country, because sometimes you need value to keep doing what you do. And in other cases, you need to be valued to being able to start doing something. And I think that in South America and Latin America in general, we are more in this second part, that most of people are trying to create a culture of continuous research, regular funding, being able to do long-term plans, not planning a research for 1 or 2 years, but planning a research for 10 years. That's the way that we do big things and discover more relevant things. But apart of that, one very positive thing in South America over the past years is that Brazil is not the only place to find congresses about biomechanics or congress about human movement science. Not anymore. We have some meetings happen in Chile, in Uruguay, in Colombia. And when you start to have regular events, meetings, congresses, and this sort of activity, means that you have a community that's becoming stronger. So I would say that in 10 years, we'll see a very different a much more relevant and impactful participation of South American and international Congress like the ISB Congresses.
Well, there is a lot to unpack there, isn't it? Because from what you are saying, it's not just about the monetary part, but it's a whole structure behind it, and it's a whole mindset. And something really important that I think you were saying was building that community where you know who is working where and what they are doing, so you feel also in a safe space. Plus, you have the support to move forward. That takes me to the next question. We usually listen a lot of biomechanics in developed countries, right? And then little by little, you've been mentioning, little by little, like South America, Latin America in general is catching up there in terms of participation in these places. One of the key points that you mentioned were community, but is any other key elements that you think over the years that you have seen that is shaping the way of how biomechanics is being developed in South America?
Yes, I would say that people should be open to learn, and to be challenged. What I want to say is that sometimes you have weakness. Everybody have weaknesses. Some points that you are very good and things that you need to improve. And many of my answers here are a self-assessment of my career as well. Because if you are not confident, maybe you don't want to show what we are doing. But if you don't show what you are doing, you will not allow people to help you. Yeah. Of course, there will be people that they are not willing to help. But that's how life works. But there will be many people that when they learn about what you are doing and they understand your need, they try to help. So having a community, a strong community, a society, even a small national society organized, will help you to create the environment, in my perception, like a national congress, a local event, or a symposium, a workshop, or something like that, that people get together to know each other. But still, you have to be open to show what you are doing, and maybe realize that you don't know that much that you think that you know. I always remember one of my very good students in the past, we went to the ISB Congress in Glasgow, right? It was the first ISB Congress that I went outside of Brazil with my students from the lab. And they were very excited about the oral presentation that one of them have to do in the Congress, and then the posters and this and that. And then when we came back home, he stopped by my office and said, "Oh, Felipe, I was reflecting about the Congress. I know nothing. I thought that I knew something, but after the Congress, I realized that I know nothing." And I said, "That's perfect. That's first step, to understand that you always have something to learn." But we need a safe space to that. I mean, the students, they have to go to the place to talk about what they are doing without being concerned about if someone will say that, "No, you are wrong, you should stop doing this and that," because this kind of thing doesn't happen in the environment of the biomechanics in general. People are very friendly to help. So this is a key element. Be open to show what you are doing. This is not a competition for a Nobel Prize. I mean, the chance of a biomechanics study winning a Nobel Prize, if you consider a Nobel Prize something that's very important, it's very small. So it's not about that. We need to grow up together as community, not only local, but also global. And when we apply for a travel grant or a research grant these days, one of the very positive things is to show that you have collaborations. So being open to meet people, to talk about what we are doing, to get feedback, it's also a key element. And of course, maybe people that are watching this video is thinking, but you have to say that without money, you're not going to do any of that. But sometimes to be able to get the funding before, you have to think this way that we are discussing here. Because if you are aware that you should show what you are doing and why and how you can benefit, then you can show to the funding agents why you need that money. So you are going to be able to explain a little bit better why they should give you money to travel abroad, to spend 1 year abroad doing research and not stay in your country working in the lab that you are working for a whole life.
Wow, very inspiring, Philip. Yeah. Thinking again about student or early career researchers, well, if you look it back on your experience to your current students, how do you see like other further suggestion for them to grow? For example, do you suggest them to go abroad, to travel, to have more experience? What is like a good suggestion in your mind to, let's say, instigate more this connection and to help the early career researcher to create this community, like you mentioned?
That's a very good question. I will try to give a non-conventional answer here, because of course, a more conventional answer here would be to publish your paper international, to maybe try to visit and do a postdoc period in somewhere, and this and that. But the thing is that the concept of early career researcher is different between the countries as well, right? For example, in Brazil, when I got my university position, I didn't have a postdoc. I mean, I have not been abroad for a postdoc before applying for a job in Brazil. And I know that this is not the reality in other countries. In some countries, to apply for a faculty position, before you need to go somewhere for a postdoctoral fellowship. So it's a little bit different. But I can say that for people from developed countries, so from people from places that, of course, I'm not saying that money is not a problem, but what I want to say is that you have the facility, you have the infrastructure, you have access to the Congress, to the events, to the major names of the area. Go to places that maybe put you in challenge. Maybe you can come to Brazil and spend 6 months in Brazil to learn about different cultures, not only about social culture, but academic culture. Yeah. For example, here in Brazil, it's very common to have huge groups in the lab. I mean, I have 25 students in the lab. And I remember when the first time that I went abroad was in Calgary. And I was there for a pre-doctoral internship with Darren Stefanishin. And Darren at that time, I think Darren's group had, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 students. And I said, that's a very small group. And when he came to visit me and said, you like the big groups because I see that you always have at least 20 students with you. So it's a completely different perspective that maybe you have. And from people that live in the developing countries, like the students from Brazil, South America, Africa, Asia, one very basic thing is language. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe some awkward to say that, but it's very difficult to talk in English. I mean, English is not our mother tongue here for any of us, right? But you learn about English because you need it, not only to read the papers, but to write and then to talk. Because writing and reading, it's okay. Yeah, that's okay. But when you have to listen and talk, it's a little bit more challenging. So if you don't have and I don't have a good English, but I have how can I say that? I don't care, right? I also try to speak in Spanish, and I used to say that if I don't know the word, I just create a word that I think that exists, and then I use in Spanish. But of course, this is kind of a joke here, but for the students from developing countries, the first thing would be to improve language in English because it opens a lot of doors. Yeah. And if you don't have, sometimes the students from Brazil, for example, we used to think that the best things are in other countries, right? Now I have to go to France. I have to go to Belgium. I have to go to the Netherlands. But you start to look around your place. Maybe near you, you have good groups that can help you in the beginning. Of course, have international collaboration. It's very important. No question about that. But we are talking about starting. And maybe you're not able to go abroad now, but maybe you can travel, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours. And then you can keep in touch with some group from your country that can help you. Yeah? That could be a recommendation, suggestion from the students from developing countries. And yeah, I think this answer is not very good, but yeah, kind of recommendations for the early career researchers.
It is good. It is good.
Did you have any thoughts about the significance of the organization process in biomechanics in Latin America?
The process?
Yeah, because like you were saying before, for example, for you was going the first time in 2013 to
okay.
right? And then we are aware that there is now a process of organization around Latin America. As you're saying, we're having now committees, we are having meetings that help to build that community. So what do you think is the significance of that process, looking back to what has been happening?
I like to use some example when I have to answer questions like that, because, for example, in Brazil is a huge country. Yeah, there's you have a very strong system of public universities in Brazil. So the students, when they enter the university for graduation, they don't have to pay anything. The public universities in Brazil, that's completely free of charge. It's kept by the government. And there are a lot of positions for undergraduate students, right? And also the science made in the country, basically it's made in the public universities. So this is to say that the public universities are strong in Brazil. Okay, so, and we have a lot of universities offering degrees in physical education, like kinesiology, physiotherapy, that are areas that have a strong relationship with biomechanics, right? So it turns that we have a lot of biomechanics groups in Brazil doing research. It helped the country to establish the Brazilian Society of Biomechanics 30 years ago, yeah? And to have a Brazilian Congress of Biomechanics every 2 years, that it's growing for every edition, it's growing. More and more people are participating. So it's easier for Brazil to keep a biomechanics society working. But if you go to smaller countries, that was the case for Chile, for example, in the beginning, they were willing to organize the Chilean Society of Biomechanics. But then we, and I said we because I was involved in the process, realized that maybe they don't have people enough in biomechanics to create a society. So they create a human movement society that puts together biomechanics and other areas. So I think one important part of this process of making the biomechanics area stronger in the country is not working alone. It's maybe participating in creating a strategy that connects people from biomechanics with other fields to make the biomechanics community more visible. You know what I mean? Because if you have a congress, you can organize every year a congress, but if you have, I don't know, 100 people participating, maybe it's not that big to make an impact. Yeah, of course, it will be an impact in people that are participating, but to extrapolate this impact to other locals in the country, maybe it's difficult because there is a lot of people to work towards this goal. But if you create an environment that you can connect people, you make the whole thing stronger. And I also think that I also like to mention that I like biomechanics. I mean, I love biomechanics. That's my life. Not my life. I mean, my professional life, right? Not personal life, but my professional life. It's all about biomechanics. It's all about biomechanics. I have some collaboration with all the other areas and fields, but it's all about biomechanics. But if you think about research is not about one single field. It's about a question. So I have a question that I have to answer. And maybe I can fully answer this question using biomechanics. For example, I want to know the angle of the knee during running. Okay, so to answer this question, I need only biomechanics. I just need to draw angle and define the value, right? But if I want to know how this angle changes if you are fatigued, for example, that not only biomechanics anymore, because you need to understand how physiological systems are working, and you need some information about biochemistry and etc. So if you create a very strong community of biomechanics, is good, but it can't be isolated. It needs to be connected with other fields. Of course, we have an International Society of Biomechanics, very strong society, because it's a global association. In some countries, you can have a national society of biomechanics because you have enough people. But in some places, the process to create this strong community, it's starting from connecting with other areas. And then maybe in the future, you can have your biomechanics society if you need it. But I don't know if you need it. Maybe you don't need it. If you have a strong society that brings together people from biomechanics and it's good for the community, that's okay. That works well. It can be a bit strange to say that because what, you don't want more biomechanics society in different countries? Yes, I want every country with a biomechanics society because they will have networks, they will have congress. But if they are not able to achieve this, it's much worse. So maybe small countries with a few groups doing research on biomechanics, you benefit of being part of something. So maybe you watching us here in a small country with not many groups doing research on biomechanics can connect with maybe another society that's growing up, or maybe other groups that are willing to establish something, and then you can create something together with the support of the ISB as well. Why not? Yeah. So I think this is one way to how can I say that? One way to see the process of establishing a strong community in different places.
I would say again, very inspiring, because I'm truly a big supporter of the interdisciplinarity, and this can be applied in different scaling. So you mentioned about maybe smaller reality, but also big reality, or big reality like ISB could benefit also with maybe collaboration with other society from time to time, organizing like joint session, and that is always a plus for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Felipe, we have a final question, but I think you probably covered that. So I might maybe exploit the opportunity to have you here as a president of a couple of society, Brazilian, international one, perhaps to ask you when you will be, let's say, president for the International Society of Biomechanics, if you have some ideas to maybe provide more support for early career researchers, if this is like, you have some concrete plan, or if not, there is a way to say, do it, please. Yeah.
Yes, I have some plans, but before talk about plans, I would just to tell a little bit about the background of the ISB presidency, because sometimes you see the name and then, Alberto Liardini, Elizabeth Clark, Felipe, Tony Arn, Walter Herzog. And one thing that it's very good when we start to participate in these committees and councils, like the board of the society, is that you know people more. And I always say to my students when I'm teaching them, because I try to motivate the students. It's very hard these days, actually, but I try to motivate them. So when I show like the Joe Hamel book, that's very famous in Brazil, the Portuguese version of the human, the biomechanics of human movement. And I said, this name here, I know this guy. I have a picture of them with him. Then I show the picture, and they said, because for them it's all about novelty. And then when you participate in the committees and you know more about people, it's really nice as well. And one thing is that even that you saw in the website that ISB has one president who now is Elizabeth Clark, we work together. So we always were working together, all the presidents and also the council members. So sometimes the ideas, the idea don't come from only one person. So I have some ideas that it's not only about my personal idea, but from things that I have been discussing with my colleagues in the council as well. And one thing that if I have the chance to promote in the future, is one space that people that want to teach something, they will have the space to teach someone. Of course, these days we talk about open science, sharing data, but it's not just about sharing the data, for example. It's about teaching something. I don't know, maybe you know about a specific topic and you have a lecture that you have this lecture saved in your computer, and you are happy to share, to talk about this to someone. But where, when? In a Congress? It's very difficult to get a spot in a Congress to talk. Being invited as an invited guest speaker in a Congress is like a highlight in the career, because you have a lot of people listening to you for 20, 30 minutes, and most of people never have this chance. But as a member of the society, maybe you want to share something. Then we can create a space with regular opportunities, open space that people can just share. And of course, maybe you are watching this video and you say, but we have YouTube for that. You have the Biomech L for that, but it's different. We need some informal environment. That's my very personal perception now, right? Because if the environment is very formal, maybe people will be a little bit afraid to be there, because I have this feeling sometimes. If the environment, and maybe this is because I'm Brazilian, they are, so they're not very formal. So if the environment is more, it is less formal, and I'm not saying about being friendly, because you can have a formal environment and friendly, but I'm talking about an informal environment and friendly as well, that people that can just come and share. It's like, I don't know, maybe some live streaming and in the social media of the society, and then anyone can join, because the membership can join, but also who is not a member can learn about what society is doing. Maybe they are being motivated to join the society. So one thing that I want to try to establish in the future is this, creating open space that people can share what they want. And one thing that I don't know if it is a role of the society actually, but I think we can do that as a society, is to try to qualify a bit more the very early scientists that we have in biomechanics. I mean, the master and the PhD students, even the undergrad students, about basic concepts of biomechanics. Maybe you can invite people to create the educational materials that can be shared in different languages, trying to facilitate understanding about some concepts. Because this is something that I see in my daily routine here in my lab and other labs that I visit. Sometimes the students, they don't have a large repertoire of examples. They are not able to follow some concepts, and maybe because they don't have material in Portuguese to read about that, or in Spanish or in other languages. And I am pretty sure that we as a community, as a global community, will find people willing to donate part of the time to helping not only translating, but adapting examples to different cultures. And then we can share these materials in different countries and cultures and attract more people to join the society. Because as if you have more people participating in the society, we'll be more stronger, because more and more people will be participating in the Congress and the activities and this and that. And the last one is something that we already are doing, that is creating small grants or small grant competitions as part of the Congress, like the developing countries competition that we created a couple of years ago in the society. And you provide a small grant, like $1,000 or so, or even less, but that's very helpful in many different realities. I mean, in Brazil, you can do a lot of things with $1,000. So yeah, so something that we can consider as well. So join the society, please.
Thank you, Felipe. I think you touch base on a lot of different concepts that are more just than, joining and going to a Congress, because I feel like when you say this thing about different realities, it came to my mind, okay, how people that don't have the money right now to join the society, but they would like in the future, what is the value that they see? And then also, how can they start connecting with this community that you were talking? And then you gave really good points where, like, we have meetings, we have other things that you can actually start doing from when you are sitting on your chair and your computer. You can connect with others, and you start, like, it's a whole universe, I think. Like, I remember meeting, I had the opportunity to go to the last ISB, and it was my first time going to a big congress in general because COVID, but it was like an eye-opening where I was like, wow, all these things are happening. And what you were saying about being more confident of what you know, I feel like it's a trend in not just in Brazil, but in general in South America, where we feel, oh, maybe I don't know much, like I don't know enough. And it's like, well, no, you need to trust that you have this knowledge. And as an early career researcher, you need to expose yourself so that people can actually know you and give you feedback. And then through that, I met a few people that, you know, I keep talking now with them. And it's like, oh, right, great. Like, you know, it didn't really matter. Oh, of course it matters, you know, what you say in terms of the concepts, but it didn't really matter at the end if there is a mistake or not, you know. Thank you so much for all those thoughts.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Felipe. And I think, yeah, this last, let's say, thoughts about the society, and then like having a society that is present maybe also through the year, not only when there is the main event, but with webinars, with yeah, you say sharing material on the website. So it's like a community that is always present. And then of course we have the, let's say, the celebration when we meet in person. That's great. But then it's not that we need to wait 2 years. It's something that is there, yeah, continuously.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Felipe. It was great to have you here. And well, thank you, and enjoy your Friday evening. For me, it's night. Actually, for Alexa, it's already Saturday morning.
Yeah, that's
so
true. I realized that, yeah.
I didn't mention anything about Tour de France yet to keep you.
Yeah, you have to. You should.
We were, yeah.